Why is the hardest step in life often the very first one? On the frozen cliffs of Antarctica, every young penguin faces a single moment that will determine its future. One leap, one decision, one chance to leave the safety of the ice and enter the unknown. Most penguins jump without looking back, but one young penguin stood frozen at the edge. Not because he was weak, but because he couldn't stop thinking. This is the story of how overthinking can keep you trapped, and why your greatest life begins on the other side of fear. High above the icy ocean lived a young emperor penguin named Pico. Every day he watched older penguins dive gracefully into the freezing sea. They returned with fish. They laughed together. They grew stronger. But whenever Pico walked to the edge of the cliff, his imagination took over. What if a shark is waiting below? What if the water is too cold? What if I don't know how to swim? What if I sink? His feet stopped moving. He always stepped back. The other young penguins made their first leap. Some splashed awkwardly, some swallowed seawater, some missed their first fish. But every single day, they became better. Meanwhile, Pico became an expert at imagining everything that could go wrong. One afternoon, an old penguin named Orion waddled beside him. "You've been standing here for 3 days," Orion said gently. Pico sighed. "I'm waiting until I'm ready." Orion smiled. "I've lived through many winters, and I've never met anyone who felt completely ready." Pico frowned. "So, how did you do it?" "I jumped before my fear disappeared." Still, Pico couldn't move. Each morning he walked to the edge. Each morning he turned back. The longer he waited, the bigger the ocean looked. The deeper it seemed, the scarier it became. Then winter grew harsher. The fish near the shore disappeared. The older penguins had to swim farther every day. Pico had never learned. Soon, hunger began to replace comfort. His stomach growled louder than his excuses. For the first time, staying on the ice felt more dangerous than entering the water. That evening, Orion stood beside him once more. "Do you know the difference between fear and danger?" he asked. Pico shook his head. "Danger is real. Fear is often your imagination trying to predict a future it cannot see." He looked at the endless ocean. "If you spend your whole life waiting for certainty, you'll miss the life waiting beyond uncertainty." The next morning, the wind was bitterly cold. Pico stood at the cliff again. His heart pounded. His legs trembled. The same fearful thoughts returned. "What if I fail?" But then another thought appeared. "What if I never try?" Without giving fear another chance to speak, he jumped. The freezing water wrapped around him. For a second he panicked. Then instinct took over. His tiny wings paddled. His body floated. He wasn't perfect. He splashed. He spun in circles. He missed every fish he chased. But he didn't sink. He survived. And suddenly, the ocean wasn't nearly as frightening as the stories he had invented in his mind. Day after day, Pico returned. Each dive became easier. Each swim became smoother. Soon he was catching fish alongside the others. The same ocean that once terrified him had become his home. Months later, another group of young penguins gathered nervously at the same icy cliff. One little penguin whispered, "What if there are sharks?" Pico smiled. "There might be." "What if I fail?" "You probably will." "What if I'm scared?" "You definitely will." The little penguin looked worried. "So, when does the fear disappear?" Pico looked across the endless blue sea. "It doesn't disappear before you jump. It disappears because you jump." Most people spend their lives waiting to feel fearless before they act. But nature teaches a different lesson. Every penguin becomes a swimmer the same way. Not by thinking, not by waiting, but by taking the first leap. The water was never the greatest obstacle. Pico's imagination was. The life you want is often waiting just beyond the jump you've been avoiding. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward before fear has finished talking. So stop standing at the edge. Take the leap. You may discover that the ocean you feared your entire life is the very place you were meant to thrive.